Even though Bitcoin is a more efficient payment system, a minority of the world's population is actually using it to buy and sell. As of today, the asset class is treated more like the digital gold that we often reference. But we've discovered a practical way for you to earn Bitcoin by doing something you're doing right this second. And no, we're not referencing those of you who are listening to this podcast while in the bathroom, but you too do qualify. Instead, we're talking about everyone who is listening to this show right now. What if you could get Satoshis just for listening in, commenting, or sharing? It's all possible with a new podcast app called Fountain.fm. We're joined by co-founder Nick Malster today to share more about how you can start earning Satoshis right now. It's episode number 695 of the Bad Crypto Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, ignition.
Who's bad?
Hello, our friends from all over the world. This is a Bad Crypto Podcast, and welcome. I don't know if I am talking like this, but perhaps it is just something deep within me that wants to talk. Hello, Travis Wright. How are you?
Are you German today now?
Perhaps I am. You will.
Perhaps you just not.
You
I
will
did not see that coming, my friend.
You will download the Fountain app, yeah?
Yeah, Fountainhead, very nice. So I'm really excited to for people to. So they're getting paid for listening to us take a poop
Yeah, pretty much. So well,
while
no,
they're in
not,
the bathroom. If you're in the bathroom and you're using the Fountain app to hear us take a poop, you get paid Satoshi. It's kind of weird, Joel.
well, we have yet to poop on the podcast. It's not a poo cast.
Oh, it's not a poo cast.
It's a podcast. Yeah. So actually,
they get paid Satoshis to listen to us on the podcast.
That's the thing. Yeah. So a member of our community pointed this app out to me a number of months ago, and finally got in touch with one of the founders there at Fountain. And you know what? This is cool stuff. I think you guys are really going to enjoy it. Listen in and find out how you can get paid to listen in. And we have with us today Mr. Nick Malster. He's the co-founder of Fountain. It's Fountain.fm. This is a podcast app that is powered by the Bitcoin Lightning Network, designed to connect creators with a community of listeners so that they can discover, share, and support their greatest work. Also, you get paid in Satoshis for listening to podcasts, for sharing clips, for sending comments. And guess what podcast is now on there? Guess, Sir Lord Travis. You're not guessing.
The Pomps? I don't know.
He probably is. Hey, Nick, welcome to the Bad Crypto Podcast.
Oh, nice.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Do I detect Aussie there?
You know what? I get that quite a lot. I'm actually from London.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a bit of an Aussie twang. I've never actually been to Australia, so I don't know where that comes from.
I'm horrible with Queen's accents. I am. Like I always get them wrong. Always. I don't care if you're, wherever you're from. I mess them up. I need
so
to
why
stop
don't you
guessing.
just next time just go, oh, I was gonna say Aussie, but let me instead guess you're English. Maybe yes.
Or maybe next time I'll just say where you're from and just
it's like your exact opposite intuition.
We had we've distributed the Bad Crypto Podcast through many channels over the years, and one of our members, one of our listeners, told me about Fountain several months ago. And at the time I was distracted and there wasn't I didn't want to look at anything new. And I finally, got an email from you or one of your team, and I took a look at it and I'm like, all right, this is actually pretty cool. So why don't you give us really quickly a Reader's Digest version of your background and then how you decided, hey, I want to build this app.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Nick and I co-founded Fountain 2 years ago, back in 2021. Before that, I was in marketing and advertising. I worked at Adidas, Nike, a few big companies. And It was in lockdown where me and a good old friend of mine called Oscar, who I've known from school, we were both just like, we want to do something. We want to do something new. We think we want to do something in podcasting. Like, let's just meet up and kind of chat through a few different ideas. And so we were pulling together this idea for a podcast app where you could share clips with your friends. And we built a really early prototype. And it was around that time where we were just listening in on what was happening within podcasting 2.0. So podcasting 2.0 is a movement, I guess, spearheaded by Adam Curry, who's the guy who basically invented podcasts back in the sort of mid 2000s.
MTV
He was
VJ.
responsible.
He was a
Exactly.
VJ
Yeah.
way back.
So,
Way
so
back
he was the
in
guy
the
who
day.
helped put
Yes.
podcasts in the iPod. And, you know, like podcasting hasn't really changed a lot in 15 years. It's basically the same today as it was back then. You know, you publish content to an RSS feed, you've got a bunch of different content apps that pull that in, and you can listen to podcasts. And he was setting out on a mission around about 2020, 21, to look at how can we actually decentralize podcasting, because one of his famous shows, No Agenda, you know, it's a show about media, politics, news, sort of deconstruction. It's always at risk of being deplatformed and taken down by Apple, because if Apple don't agree with something that Adam or his co-host John have said, they can just be like, well, fuck you, Adam, we're going to take this down. Sorry, guys. And that's a real problem for creators, particularly in this modern day. You see it all the time. So he set out to create a decentralized index of podcasts, because what happened is when Apple set up podcasts, all the other podcast apps started using their centralized library of podcasts and putting them into their apps, which was great because it allowed like tons of, smaller independent podcast apps like Overcast to, build the software, get their app out really quickly because they could just ingest all the content from Apple. But the problem is if Apple takes content down, it means it disappears on all the other apps as well.
No, I was just curious. Is that what funds the fuels chartable.com and all that data? Because it's been notoriously difficult to get actual analytics and good information from your podcast, right? I think the analytics are getting a little better, but it's like, that's the one way that we look at is we look at Chartable to see, where are we in our in overall downloads, or what does this think? And so what you're saying is they're just basically pulling that data from Apple, and whatever Apple says goes.
Yeah, exactly. And it kind of brings me on nicely to the next point, which is the podcasting ecosystem is so fragmented. You have hundreds of thousands of different podcast hosting services. You have hundreds of thousands of different podcast apps. None of these services and platforms are able to talk to each other in the same language and understand each other, which is partly why podcasting has been so held back over the years. And if you look at something like YouTube, which doesn't use RSS, they can do whatever they want. They've got, chapters, they've got playlists, they've just built everything. And podcasting doesn't have that, because if one podcast app says, I'm going to support chapters, it means the other podcast app has to support chapters in the same way, so that the podcast host can upload it and they'll be read the same way on both apps. So the second part of podcasting 2.0 was actually creating a new set of standards so that new features could be rolled out across the ecosystem. And one of those features was value for value, which was the specification for integrating Bitcoin payments into the podcast app. And it was when we saw that we were like, actually, wow, that's a massive opportunity, because there's a real disconnect for podcasters who are trying to monetize their content. Obviously, you guys have been doing this for like over 6 years now. You've probably tried a bunch of different ways to be able to monetize the show, drive income from supporters, from advertisers, other different sources. And they're all quite difficult, and they're all quite out of reach for the podcaster who's just starting up and wants to monetize straight away. So on Fountain, you can actually just top up your Fountain wallet. When you create a Fountain account, we give you a Bitcoin wallet. You can top that up really easily. And then you can start supporting podcasts. So you can send what we call a boost, which is just a bunch of Satoshis attached to a comment. And so I could, like, when this episode comes out, I could boost this episode. And not only will the money go straight to you, but other users who follow me on Fountain will see that I've supported that episode. So it's not just supporting the podcast, but it also drives podcast discovery through a sort of social layer, which is really interesting, because that for us was a problem we really identified with. We both love podcasts, but we both listen to the same 7 or 8 podcasts. There's so much great stuff out there, and really the payment could be the signal for driving discovery and helping you find those new things you want to listen to.
So for those of you that are watching on one of the video channels, I've actually screen shared the app. Why don't you describe for us and kind of take us on a really quick whirlwind tour of the different features and functionality of the app? How do people get paid for listening, and how do creators get paid for creating?
Yeah, so I'll start with the podcaster first. All podcasts that are on Apple Podcasts are going to be on Fountain. So that's over 4 million podcasts, including Bad Crypto podcasts. All the podcaster has to do is claim their show and say, hey, I'm the owner of this RSS feed, and I want payments to be received for my podcast. So you claim your show, and then if you go to the wallet section, you can see actually all the Satoshis that you received to your account will be in there.
Travis, we're rich. Look at that. We got 12,891 sats sitting in this wallet so far. I mean, we haven't really announced it yet, but apparently we have 9 followers on Fountain, and so people can listen to the same
That's
show.
Fun, Joel. I think I really like that new idea of being able to earn sats like this. Because when we were talking about a podcast and audience engine earlier on, like, that wasn't available. That other layer to build on top of Bitcoin like that is pretty good. I love how you guys have identified that, and it is fun to earn sats. Like, I love it. That's good. 12,000, baby.
It is. So once the podcast's been claimed, listeners on Fountain can start boosting sats, and they can also stream, which is basically just paying you for every minute they spend listening, which is like really small amounts. But if you're listening to this podcast for like hours a week or hours a month, then like that really quickly builds up. So that's the podcaster side, and on the listener side, you've already mentioned sharing clips, and that's kind of where Fountain started. So if I'm listening to this episode, I can just hit the clip button. I can take like a 1 or 2 minute soundbite from this episode that I really found interesting, and I can share it with my followers. So I can post it on the home feed, and the clips that from other users will appear there, and I can also see their boosts. So I've got plenty of different content that I can discover from my home feed.
Can you also then take a clip we could find a clip that we know was good from our own show, and then put that clip up as an advertisement where we're boosting it other podcasts so they can see it?
Yeah, so the podcast that you can't actually promote a clip in Fountain, but you could promote your latest episodes on Fountain. So if you guys go back to the home feed, you'll see at the top of the page, there's a couple of promotions up there. Firstly, I'm seeing a promoted episode. So this podcast, High Hash Rate, it's a Bitcoin podcast. They're promoting their podcast to Fountain listeners. And if you play that podcast, you're going to earn Satoshis for every minute you spend listening to that show. So that's a really great way for podcasters to be able to, reach new listeners and give them an incentive to listen to their podcast for the first time, because you're earning sats for every minute you spend listening. So it's a really great growth hack.
How do you keep people from gaming the system? Like right now, I hit play on this and I just lowered the volume. I could walk away and it's playing and I'm not really listening. So how do you stop somebody from doing that so that they're not listening to podcasts all day, but they're earning Satoshis?
Or they have one of those clickbait farms like in Asia. There's like 100 phones all lined up.
Right.
We're going to listen to all these Satoshis.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's what we're up against, Travis. There are, device farms out there who have thousands of iPhones in a rack who are automated to, exploit these types of apps. So we're constantly building new defenses, security systems that will defend against that.
Yeah.
So I
Like
can't
after
give
you've earned
loads of
X amount of
details what those
Satoshis, maybe
are,
you can
but
just stop it and you can say, click this captcha to continue.
Mm-hmm.
So that way you can stop the bots.
yeah,
That would be
well,
good.
it's an interesting point. Like we are actually going to be introducing an audio capture quite soon. So in the same way that you have to like, click on the pictures that show like a monkey eating a banana, we'll have that same thing, but for audio. So you have to identify what the audio playing is, and that verifies that you're a genuine user. So yeah, there are a few things that we do just to like protect against that type of gamification.
So you guys can listen to the same show that you're listening to now wherever if you download the Fountain app. Go to fountain.fm. I'm assuming it's available for iOS and Android, or just iOS?
Correct.
For both platforms. We actually have multiple shows on there right now. I've claimed Bad Crypto Podcast, Bad AI Show, and the Nifty Show. So you can go listen to old episodes. It's there's always some fun ones that are worth revisiting, and you'll earn Satoshis for listening there. iTunes doesn't pay you anything. You get nothing.
Yeah,
for
wait a
listening.
second. Wait a second. Do they earn Satoshis even if like we haven't funded it with Satoshis for people to listen to Bad Crypto? Like we haven't promoted it. So is that only a promoted feature, or is that listening to any podcast feature you can earn a little something something?
No, so you can actually earn by listening to any podcast. So there's three main ways that you can earn on Fountain. First of all, you can earn daily rewards. So you get paid for your first hour of listening to any podcast on select days. So you won't earn every day, but every other day you will. That's the first thing. The second thing is you can earn extra stats by listening to the promoted episodes and promoted ads on the home feed. And then the third thing is you can earn money in tips from other listeners for your clips and your comments. So if I've sent a boost to the show and it was funny and someone else liked it, they can like that boost and send me a tip, which is actually, it's much better than just a dopamine boost, because that's really all you're getting on Instagram or Twitter is just that feeling good of like, oh, someone sent me a like, so what? But if they're sending you sats, it's all that bit sweeter.
Boost
So
us,
you can
baby.
get likes for your clips and comments. So that's how you can earn on Fountain.
I'm feeling a little down today. I could use a boost. So, you guys listening, go ahead and hit us with some Satoshis. We'll get boosted.
I need some sats. Sats make me happy.
We'll be
Sats make me happy. Sats make Joel happy.
Yeah. I mean, look, we've actually not attempted to really monetize this show in a long time. Occasionally somebody will come to us and they'll want to sponsor, but we just like putting out this content, especially during this bear market. Things are rough, and we just want to say, hey, we're still here, we're creating content. It's not about the money, it's about the value that we want to bring. And but this is a way for fans to receive the same content, get paid, and if you want to tip or boost us, that's cool, we're good with it.
So check it out right now with the price of Bitcoin. One is 3,650 Satoshis. So like that's kind of cool. We've earned almost $4, Joel.
Boom, just like that.
Congratulations.
We're well we got to split it though.
Yeah.
All
well, right. You can almost buy a pack of these nuts for that much. Good.
Nick, appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you want people to know about Fountain App and the future of decentralized podcasting?
So yeah, by the time this episode comes out, we should have launched Fountain 0.8, which adds support for music as well. So we will no longer just be podcasts, but we'll have music on Fountain as well. So as a musician, you can just publish your albums, your tracks to an RSS feed in the same way that you do as a podcast, and they'll be visible in Fountain. And you can earn Satoshis from boosts, from streams, from listeners listening on Fountain. But the other really cool thing is you can now feature music inside a podcast, which is creating a whole new category of music podcasts, which is kind of like going back to like drive time radio, or kind of music radio shows where a DJ can like spin tracks and the audience can, stream sats. So paying sats every minute they're listening. And when the track moves from one to the next, like the recipient for the sats changes and it goes to the artist who created that track, which is pretty cool because until now, like you haven't really been able to feature music in podcasts because the cost and the complexity of like clearing it, getting the license is so difficult. With value for value, there's kind of an agreement there between the podcaster and the artist that says, hey, you can like use my track for free in your podcast, but when someone supports the podcast, I want a cut of the money. And so that's how this works.
I love that. What are some of the most popular categories of podcasts on your platform right now? I mean, we would assume crypto and technology, but what are some of the bigger categories on there right now?
Yeah, so obviously Bitcoin podcasts have been the first to adopt it because they are just naturally curious to try out this new technology, see how it works. But we're also seeing a lot of podcasts in like various different categories, really, particularly gaming. I think there's like a strong crossover between crypto and gaming as kind of consumer mindsets and the types of communities who are interested in that type of thing. And then I think, there's a lot of podcasts that talk about, politics, news, like liberty, kind of real people who are, I guess, defending their like rights of sovereignty as citizens and are really, passionate about, a decentralized future where they can own their audience and like have freedom of speech. So those types of podcasts are really popular too.
We're a big fan of freedom of speech here at this show. You say what you want, and you can do that on the Fountain app, gang. So check it out, fountain.fm, and not a paid sponsorship to share this app with you. We think it's just cool. If we're going to get paid, it's because you'll tip us. But even if you don't, go listen to the app and you get paid to do it. Nick, thanks for coming on, and good luck with Fountain. So there you go, fountain.fm. Just go download it. And instead of listening on iTunes or Google Play, I would say Stitcher, but Stitcher is going under. I think they are terminating their app. But wherever it is that you listen to the podcast, if you listen on fountain.fm, then you can earn Satoshis while listening to the same show. I mean, why wouldn't you stack sats and listen to bad crypto?
I mean, this is like the perfect storm for this type of thing, right? A crypto podcast where you get to listen to the podcast and earn Bitcoin while listening. That's a perfect storm. And one thing I love that he talked about was the fact that, Apple is a centralized service, and most of these other podcast apps are pulling in, Apple's data. Right. And so if Apple kicks you out, then you're out of the data. You're out of all the podcasts, essentially, because Apple kicked you out. And so if they don't like what you say, then there's a problem. However, with Fountain, you can still be found on Fountain, even if you're not on Apple, because Apple doesn't like you or whatever else. So I think that's a pretty key indicator right there why this is an important app to download. And I'm now using it to download and to listen to podcasts. I don't listen to as many podcasts probably, but I don't watch much television. I do listen to podcasts and audiobooks. I listen to more audiobooks typically, but I do love podcasts, and I love our audience who listens to podcasts and listens to us. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. So please do keep listening to us. And if you enjoy what you hear in the Fountain app, guess what? You can tip us. You can throw sats our way. You can throw them right at Travis's forehead and he won't even feel it. Just be like, oh, ow.
It's really cool. It's really cool. You're listening to it, and then you can leave a comment. You can buzz up a post or something so more people can see it. Or if you're listening to the podcast and you found that Joel said something completely brilliant for a change, you can literally clip that and make that its own thing, and then put sats and boost that brilliant post by Joel to prove to everyone that Joel said something brilliant.
It happens rarely, but
when you say something brilliant, it's really brilliant. I mean, we're real.
Yeah, that's usually I'm usually in the toilet when I do that. So when we're full
hey,
circle.
Speaking of that, I'm and going back to the original Poocast. I'm in Thailand, and in Thailand and in a lot of these Southeast Asian countries, they don't use much toilet paper. They have this little spray hose next to the toilet that you call it's the bum gun, and it's the bum gun, and it's just like a garden hose where you pull the trigger and it sprays really hard. Like, oh my God, I love the bum gun.
So it's like a portable bidet. It's way
better than a bidet. Yeah. You got to straddle a bidet. You got to like squat over it and straddle it and then get the hose thing just right. With the bum gun, dude, you just put it right there and
Bum
you're good.
gun. Sounds like it should be a 70s Ronco commercial. The bum gun now available.
I think we should have the bum guns in the West. They're so genius. Like literally, it's like when you get shit on your hands, you just wipe it off with paper. No, you wash it. You wash your fucking hands because you got shit on it. But when you drop a deuce, you just wipe it off with toilet paper and you go about your way. But with the I think in the bum gun, Southeast Asians have the most cleanest asses in the world, probably.
All right. Somebody just asked me this week, why is it called the Bad Crypto Podcast? And this is why, folks. This is why. More than 6 years of badness coming up on episode number 700 very soonly. We appreciate you guys listening, subscribing, ringing bells, reviewing. Go listen on the Fountain app. We'll catch you next time. Stay bad.
Who's bad?
The Bad Crypto Podcast is a production of Bad Crypto LLC. The content of the show, the videos, and the website is provided for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. It's not intended to be and does not constitute financial, investment, or trading advice of any kind. You shouldn't make any decisions as to finances, investing, trading, or anything else based on this information without undertaking independent due diligence and consultation with a professional financial advisor. Please understand that the trading of Bitcoins and alternative cryptocurrencies have potential risks involved. Anyone wishing to invest in any of the currencies or tokens mentioned on this podcast should first seek their own independent professional financial advisor.
I mean, speaking of fountains, there's nothing more of it like a fountain than bum guns. It's like the perfect fountain. It's like the fountain of youth. And then you just fold up your toilet paper, about 2 or 3 squares of toilet paper, and then you just use that as a drying agent. You're like, all right, now my bum is dry. It's clean and dry. You don't have to worry about the leftover remnants.
I think that's going to get us tips some Satoshis for sure.
Just the tip.